All right, Muho, I think we're going to start then. I'll get things going then. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our special Zazenkai this evening with Abbot Muho of Antai-ji. It is so good. Muho, can you hear all right? You can hear me all right?
Is okay with it?
Yeah, you can hear?
Yes, I hear.
All right. And
Can you hear me?
everyone out there, we have two groups of everyone else out there. Give a wave if you can hear. Give a wave to Muho. We have two groups of, we have two computers running this evening. I'm going to invite some of the people on the waiting list to come into group one if you wish, because we have a couple of open seats there. So if you were on the waiting list and you'd like to come into group one, Muho, I know this is really the middle of the night for you, because you usually would be in bed about this time. Is that right?
Yeah, it's 9 o'clock here, and that's around time where people start to sleep. So some of us are already asleep. And actually, there's four. Not only me, there's 5 of us. So there's 4 that stay awake. From the other half, I know the dead right now. 5 are already again.
I'm going to ask you, you're going to have to get closer to your microphone for your talk, I think.
So shall I become audible, or if I get close, you can't see me?
Oh, we'll see you.
Well, you can see part of it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Try again. This is how we do things around here. We improvise at the last minute, always.
Okay, is that better?
There you are. Good, good, good. Well, with that in mind, I thought we'd begin with 30 minutes of Zazen. We'll have about 5 minutes of Tinhin, and then I will turn everything over to you. I just think everyone here has already read much about you, about Antai-ji. It is a very, very special place, as you know. Our corner of the Soto world, because even though we're not part of your lineage, so close to Roshi and Uchiyama Roshi, and so Antai-ji is kind of a mecca for us, and so we are very, very safe. It's a very, very special night to have you here. With that in mind, let us just sit. I will ring the bell and we'll sit for 30 minutes. Is that okay?
Yes. Thank you for having me. And yeah.
have a few minutes of Kinhin. We also have some open places in Bucky. We'll now have a talk. minutes. Oh, very good. We've all come together here. I'm going to just turn everything on now, just with a small. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. The first time I'm sitting then on the internet. Good experience. Maybe I would like to talk about how I got into the Zen in the first place and how I ended up becoming the abbot of Antalya. My first encounter with the Zen was when I was 16. At the time I was living in a boarding school, and at that boarding school there was a Zen meditation service. They called it meditation in the style of Zen. One of the teachers there was into Zen, and he invited all of us to meditation. That was in 1984. And at the time, I didn't know anything about meditation, but somehow I connected meditation with people that levitate or that claim they can levitate. And also, one big thing at the time Sri Rajanishi, who was called Bhagwan at the time, later he changed his name to Osho. And his followers, there were lots of followers in Germany as well. They dressed orange and they had their special discos. And on TV you could see the Bhagwan riding Rolls Royce. So anyway, when I heard Zen, difference with gurus that sitting in Rolls Royce, I was kind of a little suspicious that no, thank you, not for me. I think most of the schools, the part-time in meditation circle. So 2 weeks after, once more he approached me and said, "Why don't you try it after all? You be it." How come it comes to second? I have to try it if not. I have no intention to do it. And he said, "Well, if you never then you can So I decided to go there once, and then and that I ended up sitting here now. I would go every 2 or 3 times. What kept me going was that for the first time in my life, that I'm close every body and what we call only. But I'm thinking in my head, this is me, and I need a to the brain, and I need lungs to absorb oxygen. It would cut my neck if you could attach some machine to this head that would do the same job, but my lungs and my heart wouldn't really change me, because as long as what happens in my brain isn't changing, I'm the same person. And doing the circulate, sensation. When you sit, you wouldn't hear, like the birds outside the wind. And at first it was just this simple realization that it's not only here that I am, but I'm connected to this body, and this body is connected to the outside world. I hear me, also connected to myself. So I kept coming back to the Zen. After one year, that was responsible for the Zen circle. And that time, he said, why don't you continue as the responsible person for the obviously finding other people? And I at first was very surprised that he would ask me, because after the meditation, usually don't then circles, you ask each one, how was it for you? What did you experience? What he would tell us before the then is that we should find our center. He would always tell us, find your center and then stay in that center. So he would go around asking one this idea. Person would say, I saw a beautiful kind of practice in Zen monastery. And if you practice hard enough, you might actually reach Satori. And what Satori is cannot be expressed in words, in short form. And that got me very interested. Part of that, or reason, because I was then very interested, is because my mother and I would ask myself when I in my room and think, and what I thought was, die why did we live in the first place? Why don't we do it now? What's the meaning in going to school learning? Well, maybe to get a job in the future, but what's the meaning in getting a job? Well, maybe to make a living and to raise a family and to have kids. Well, what's the meaning with that? And I thought, well, Dad knows everything. I was 7, 8 years old, so I thought, well, Dad must know everything. That's a very simple question. What's the meaning of life? So I went to Dad and asked him. And he said, boy, you're a little philosopher, aren't you? Why don't you go and ask the teachers at school? So next day I went to a grade school, and teachers, they made a funny face, and they said, well, we don't teach that here at grade school, wait until you go to junior high or high school. But even as I didn't find that in the school books. Well, actually a topic of the class, why do we live? And also I had the feeling that my friends, nobody was really interested in this question. At one point I thought, well, maybe never had anybody asked this question before. I realized, oh no, I'm Prince Shakyamuni, who probably had a similar question. And obviously he found the answer on the Holy Trinity after that. So when I was, well, 17, I already knew that, well, this is my life. Go to Japan and become a Zen monk and pursue this way. I thought that I would go directly to Japan after high school and become a Zen monk right away. But when original teacher who told me to then quit the school already at the time, I told him that actually after reading all these books, and then I made up my mind that I would become a Zen monk after graduating from high school. Responsibility, but he now then kind of said, wait a minute, that's fine, that you're very enthusiastic, and well, you're burning with that wish to practice Zen now, but who knows how you might, maybe you get stuck, and you want to go back to Germany, but kind of education, college, there might not be many other options. So why don't you first go to university, you can study Japanese there, and then after finishing university, you can still go. So for a second time I was fooled by this teacher, and I changed my mind. Said, okay, I'm gonna go to university. In Germany, you graduate from high school usually around June, before the summer holidays, and then you can enter. Either way, you have at least 3 or 4 months before you enter university. So I decided at age 19, when I graduated from high school, to go to Japan for only 3 months. At first, I did a home stay in Utsunomiya, which is in Tochigi. I think it's not so far away from Tsukuba. And the family where I stayed happened to be a Christian family. There's not so many Christians in Japan, maybe 1%. But that family that took me, they were Christian. And I think they were looking forward to have this boy from Germany in the country of Luther, maybe Protestant Christianity, while I, on the other hand, I was going to Japan to learn something about Buddhism. I went there and told them, here, can you teach me about them? Take me back. They thought that I could teach them something about Christianity. And as I was also interested in Japanese culture that was somehow related to Zen, I asked, well, can I hear some shakuhachi music? Where do I have to go to hear shakuhachi music? And family, he put a record on old record player. This is real music, and from the loudspeakers, it was Bach playing. So for them, that was real music. For me, for them, everything connected to that was real thing. So at first, I was a little bit disappointed that I couldn't find it there in the family Utsunomiya. So after a month or so, I hitchhiked to Kyoto, and there's lots of, especially Rinzai, at least seven big training monasteries, Rinzai tradition in Kyoto, and they all have beautiful Zen gardens. If you pay 500 yen. I was not successful place that would accept me for the real Zen training. So when I went back to Germany and entered university, I was a little bit disappointed by this first experience. Oh, well, I'm going to study Japanese once I know Japanese. It might be easier to find a place to extract. And in Germany at that time, they didn't have the bachelor. To enter the university, you have to at least get a master's degree before you can graduate. And that would take, you have to get all the degrees, and then you have to write the thesis. It can take 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Some of the students there in Berlin, at the time, the German government didn't put much pressure on people. University was free. I think there's discussion going on now in America to pay for university. In Germany, it was always kind of taken for granted. And my parents studied at university. I enjoyed studying at university, but also I wanted to become a Zen monk. Enrolled far away from getting the master's, but I decided to take and go once more to Kyoto to study as an exchange student in Kyoto. And I had hoped to find this time a Zen temple, maybe one of the main Rinzai temples that would accept me for training, maybe in the evening, in the morning, early morning sitting. But again, I was not successful. But I was given the name of Shohaku Okumura, who is now in Indiana, Indiana. But at that time, he was each month he was giving a Dharma talk in Kyoto. I got that name in Berlin at one of the dojos I was practicing. I was practicing several times a week in the dojo in Berlin. Before I went to Kyoto, I asked, do you have any addresses in Kyoto? So they gave me the name of Okumura Roshi. And I heard that he actually offered a 5-day session every month. That was not about 1 hour with the train from Kyoto. It's no temple for schooling. So I went to the session every month. And the sessions there were very different from the sessions I knew in Europe. In Europe, there's quite different styles. The first style of Zen that I experienced, that was in high school, was some kind of Christian Zen. It was a Christian school. And Christian Zen is something that's pretty strong in Germany. It was started by a Catholic priest called Lazar 20 years ago, I think. But there's still quite a number of Catholic priests, also some Protestant ministers that practice Zen, and they try to combine it with their Christian belief. That's how I started. But then in Berlin, I joined one of the doors in the Deshimaru tradition, which is also part of the Sawaki tradition in the wider sense. So they put emphasis on the right posture. And there's usually quite a large amount of people in those groups. So in Berlin there was about 50 people, and the sessions were held several times a year outside in the countryside, and there would be sometimes 200 people for sessions. Always in several rows. So the first row would sit facing the wall, the second row would be facing the backs of the first row, the third row would be facing 2 rows of backs. Another thing is kind of unique to this tradition that the leader is always giving kusen. There's always talk during the sitting. So you always would have something to listen to. The session that I participated in holding was Antaji style. Often I was teaching the Antaji tradition. Session started at 4 in the morning, and there's 14 hours. And now Antaji is 15 hours. The 9 evening, 3 meals, and no talks. No teisho, no cleaning, no work, no bath, no pillow, no shower, nothing. And when I arrived there were only 3 people, except myself, arrived the night before the session started. So I asked, so when I people coming, talking about the complete silence. At first I was waiting when was the Putin stuff. There's no talk. Nothing. But I got to like that style, and I realized it was much closer to go in this cave, facing the wall. So I came back for these sessions each month, and I spent 2 months summer, and then in the autumn I was supposed to go back to Kyoto and finish another. But I felt that life in the monastery in the Zen temple was much more fulfilling. Because it was possible to practice full time. And he said, well, if you want to do that, why don't you go to Antai? It's a little further from the sea, but that's where I trained when I was young, and when Yamamoto was still the so I could give you an introduction. That's how I first got there, 24, now already. Was just after a big typhoon had hit the area, and complete road from the bus stop. It takes about 4 kilometers, about 1 hour to walk up from the bus stop. But that road had been washed away, so there was a monk that had to come up down the mountain to pick me up and show me the way, but with I would say creep up the mountain, because there was no road. It was raining on that day as well, so when we arrived up there, it was completely wet, so I was offered to enter the Ofulo, the bath. The bath, the water was drowned because the dam where we get the water from was filled with mud and trees. If you opened the tap in the kitchen, it was looked like coffee that came out of the tap. So, a little surprised. Was very different from the life I knew from Kyoto. It was also different from Shuri. And after the bath, I was invited to tea by the then abbot, Riyan Laroshi, and he would ask me, why have you come to Accra? I said, I came here to learn and to that he would say, "We are not a school. You have to create anti. You create anti." That was the first thing he told me, although he knew that I was just a student and I would leave after 6 months. It's great. And that inspired me quite a lot. Oh, I'm creating anti. It's not that anti already exists, and I just follow what my senior students, my senior Dharma brothers tell me. Well, it's actually up to me what I can learn here. But then it wasn't as easy as I thought. There's a lot of work to be done. There's also a lot of delay. We take 2 hours in the morning, then we have a total of 9 session days each month. But even harder than the thing for me was the work. Because anti has no parish. We live self-sufficient. There's vegetable fields, rice fields that we can take care of. So in the winter we have this wood stove that keeps us warm, and we need wood for that, but also in the kitchen we don't have gas. A lot of trees need to be cut, wood needs to be chopped. As a university student, I never was willing to spot, so I've never lifted anything heavier than a book of philosophy. So physically it was really hard for me. In the winter then we're closed off. Right now it's the same task and can't reach here from December to the end of March. And it's quite cold. So it wasn't easy, but it was basically what I've been looking for in this kind of life. So when I went back to Berlin the next spring, I knew this is why I want to come back. I want to come back here and come to Muho. And after I graduated, I finished my master's. I wrote my master's thesis on yoga and skin, and I came back. That was in 1993, and the others allowed me to 48. I became a full platform. But after that, it became even harder for me. The first 6 months they were okay, but then after I ordained, it became even harder. One of the things that I had great difficulties with was the tensile, being the cook. In Germany, I'd never really cooked. As a student, I would eat 1 bowl of oatmeal in the morning, and then 1 bowl of oatmeal in the evening with milk, basically. I didn't really need more than that. And you would think that in a Zen monastery it is also simple, and it is to a certain degree, but then the Japanese, they enjoy to eat well, even in the Zen monastery. So, well, we don't eat so well compared to like the urban situation with delicious. But then Japanese are quite specific in how they go out there. How you the taste, how much soy sauce, for example, that you use to cook things. At first, I wasn't even aware that something like dashi exists. I made miso soup. People would tell me, well, where's the dashi? What is dashi? Dashi is something what you mix in there to give it broth, to give it a certain taste. And at lunch, often we have noodles. There's 3 kinds of noodles in Japan. Udon is kind of a thick version. Soba, that's buckwheat noodles, and soman, both are very thin. They're all well prepared in a different way, and they need a different time to get ready. Usually udon take the longest time. And at first, when it was my first day of being a cook, I thought, well, I'll make them like spaghetti al dente. But that was too hard. So after lunch, they well complained, those udons are too hard. You're not supposed to chew them. You kind of slurp them. Eat them like that. So they shouldn't be too hard. So the next day I thought, okay, I'll make them really soft. They cooked them for an hour and they did soft. So it wasn't kind of rude. To listen to the criticism of my Dharma branch. So I talked back and said, well, actually, I haven't come here to learn about cooking. I came here to learn about Buddhism. And my teacher, who heard that, said in a quite loud voice, you don't count at all. It's not about you. In a Japanese context, that's quite a matter of course. Well, that's the kind of response you would get, because obviously practice is not only about sitting the Zen and reading books, but maybe doing some work. When you're the cook, how can I make the best meal possible? How can I make something that's enjoyable to all, even if food is not so important to me? In a way, it's a big core. So if you say, well, I'm interested in the Zen and cooking is not my thing, then of course you get this kind of response. It's not about you. In the beginning, it was very hard for me to accept that kind of thing, because 2 years ago, 3 years ago, my teacher told me, you create antaiji. Well, if I create antaiji, how can it be that it's not about me? I'm supposed to talk. Find some time to realize that these two things, you create the world, not about you, they belong together. Or to create my life, if at the same time I forget about myself. So, for example, right now we're 10 people here in Antalya. If each of these 10, if each of us would create only their own antaiji, it would be impossible to live together. To create one antaiji together, with each 10 of us actually participating in this process of creating, each of us also has to forget about themselves, look around and see what do the others need in this situation. What can I do for the others? Only in this way can I create antaiji. So in retrospect, maybe those were the two most important things that I learned from my teacher. If nobody's going to do it for me. For that, I have to completely forget about myself. Ideas create antaiji in the first place. Altogether, I stayed 8 years in antaiji with my, and at that point I had Shiho, Dharma. Shiho, of course, does not basically do one thing. You could, if you wanted to take responsibility for temple in Japan, you can also. My idea was that I would eventually go back to Germany and start some kind of program in Germany. But as a matter of fact, there's already quite a number of groups in Germany, in Europe. If I had gone back to Berlin, there would have been at least a dozen of Buddhist groups, at least in the Zen tradition. If you Vipassana groups, Tibetan groups, places where you can practice Buddhist meditation. And also, in medium-sized town chances that you go in Japan, of temples. In the so-called school alone, there's 15,000 Zen temples. Temples has their taste. Most of these temples have a family there, taking care of the parish. Buddhist memorial services. But most of these temples don't have a Zen group. Once a month, on the third Sunday of each month in the afternoon, there's one round of sitting in the priest. So there's not so many Zen temples in Japan where you can actually practice Zazen. And practice Zazen daily. Antalya is one of those two very far off the mountain, so it's impossible for people in the city that have a job or for students to read. So I thought before I go back to Germany, I want to start a Western style Zen group in Japan, somewhere in the city where people can join me for the Zen every morning or maybe in the evening. But I didn't have any money. So I didn't have any money to rent a place, or didn't have money to stay on my own, to rent an apartment for myself in, say, Tokyo or Osaka, the two cities I was thinking of. So to rent a place where a group of people could sit was out of the question. So, you know, temple. So I went to one of those tents and asked, well, is it okay if I also stay here and have my own tent? And asked one of the people, oh, please go ahead. Do as you like. And so that was in 2001, just after 9/11. I built up my tent and started my own Zazen group. And of course, at first, nobody knows about the group, so I sit basically on my own every morning. My own first homepage. I said, this German monk who sits every morning for 6 hours. If you like, please join me. I'm talking too long?
No. Well, I want to make sure that.
Yes, until when do we have to get finished?
I had said we would go to 9:30. It's more your bedtime or anything. Maybe we could take questions for about 20 minutes. Would that be?
Oh, okay. So it's 10:20 now. When do you want to be finished? well, I have time. I have time. Okay, I'll try to finish as fast as possible. So I was like, at first alone, but then, well, there was maybe on some days it was cold in the winter. We were sitting outside of the tent. But, well, there was a number of people sitting with me over the winter. to like that life in Osaka very much because, so first of all, 24 hours of the day were mine. And here in Antalya, from 4 in the morning, you get at 3:45, and from 4 in the morning, there's a event, and there's breakfast, there's cleaning up, there's samu. After samu, you have barely time to have your bath, and then there's dinner, and then there's evening sitting. And then you try to get to bed as early as possible. So, although that practice is your practice, your time, you often feel, I often feel as like a slave. I had no time for myself. And Osaka was, all of the day was mine. I didn't own that space where I was living, but if the police would have told me to leave, or I could have gone. I felt completely free. And actually, in December or so, I fell in love with who had come to the Zazenkai. So I had a girlfriend for the first time in 10 years. I was dating her, starting to date her, or actually what she was, after a while she started to live with me. Living there from, well, the beginning of about 2. And in February 14th, on Valentine's Day, we had an appointment in the evening, but in the afternoon I get this call on my page from one of my Dharma brothers that my teacher, the Zazenkai, was involved in an accident with a bulldozer, moving snow with bulldozer, had an accident and was in the hospital. And so I went with the next train. In the evening I reached Hamasaka the next time. We were already dead in the hospital. And at the time there were few people in Antaiji. All of those who had Dharma transmission, I was the 5th one, I was the last one who had Dharma transmission from our teacher. My 4 seniors had already left Antaiji and taken care of temple. So I was asked to take care of the temple until the spring so that people could discuss with them the next step. But then in the May, and finally they said, well, maybe even the Gaijin, maybe you, as a foreigner, maybe even you can do it, why don't you do it? And I said, well, if you don't want to do it, I'm fine, it's an honor. So I moved back to Antaiji, I broke down those tents in Osaka, I proposed to my girlfriend, who's now my wife. We have 2 kids together, and well, I've been living here for the last 13, 14 years at Yevet. And there would be more to talk about, but I also want to give you raise some questions, and maybe I can say that more connected to those questions.
Very interesting. All right. Aske from Sweden. Make sure your microphone is on. Let me make sure. Is your microphone on?
It's on. It's on. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I hear you.
Thank you. You spoke about single-mindedness a lot, about knowing what one wanted to do with one's life. So I wanted to ask you, when we go about, we have lots of desires, lots of wanting to do things.
Yes.
And how to figure out once that one has is actually genuine, it's good, or if it's may I do something better about if there is some.
Okay, thank you. One thing to be sure that that's really the thing that we want to do. It's not something. Well, I think there's no way you do that one thing that you're doing. Well, you might realize that after a while that's not what you wanted to do. But start kind of you're doing that, but at the same time you already you are kind of, for example, you go to Antaiji because you think that's what you do, but then at Antaiji you spend your days say reading books on Tibetan Buddhism because that also sounds interesting. Maybe you also want to do that. And you actually decide after 6 months that you want to go to Tibet. But go to Tibet, and what do you do there? You start to read books on Theravada, because maybe that's also interesting. And if you do that, you will probably never find the thing that you really want to do. Or it's the same like with a relation. You find a girlfriend, and you love her, but you think, well, maybe there's even better for me. So the dating her, but you also keep your eyes open for her. So work out with that, but it won't work out with the other possibilities either, because you never completely thing that you're facing. So I think that's basically single-mindedness. It even works for the small things that we do, like if single-mindedly, well, just by completely doing that one thing, not even something that we do when we are in our meditative environment ourselves, while we are ourselves, while we're cleaning, and we realize when we do that, you're never really in the cleaning because there's always this observe. So when people try to don't make a lot of sound, noise. Try to do it as fast as possible, but be quiet. Also, it's about mindfulness. We're wasting time if we clean the same floor, same corridor twice. So be aware where the others are cleaning. Make sure that the whole area is clean, but none of these areas are clean 2 times or 3 times. And if that's where your focus is, you try to do it as fast as possible, but also you're quiet, and you're aware of your surroundings, what the other people do and what you do in that moment, then naturally you have to become single-minded. So, well, cleaning is a kind of example from everyday life. But when you ask kind of more general questions, well, what do I want to do with my life in the first place? Well, start one thing, do that completely, and so much realize you probably will never find one thing that will always keep you happy. Like during these 25 years that passed since I first came to Antaiji, was never that I was really completely happy in Antaiji. That was some years and asked myself, why don't I take the next bus? But then I say, well, okay, there's one bus at noon, but let's skip that bus and I'll take the bus in the evening. But then in the evening, I said, well, it's already late. Let's wait until tomorrow. Let's go back in the morning when I'm free bus that time. Fooling myself in that way for quite some weeks, some months, sometimes at a time. So sometimes you have to do that as well. And from the time until now, those 13 years, we've all been kind of really in love and kind of full sweetheart, but there's also difficult times. But if you have a certain gut feeling that even if it's hard, this is my thing, that there's no other alternative, or even though there are alternatives, if I switch now and pursue another alternative, still I'm going to get stuck. So why not just go straight here right now? At least in my case, in most cases, it could be further. So well, at least in the case of Zen, that's been hard because 25 years I tried my best to just do what I'm doing. That's what I'm still doing now. I don't know if it answers the question. But
Anyone else? Please wave your hands. All right, I have a question from home. I'm going to actually combine two questions. Adrian would like to know, how do you balance being both the abbot of Antaiji and a husband and father? And I also say that in our Sangha, because we have people practicing at home, we try to tell people that they can be kenzo in their own kitchen, changing a sacred ceremony. It's this morning to change your baby's diaper if you do it with sacredness. But I'd like to ask you about that and Adrian's question, how do you and husband and father?
yeah, thank you. That's for me that's a big one. Because as Gundoza said, of course, family life. Being a father, you have to balance practice and family life. There's nothing to balance. Family life. But my responsibilities as the abbot do not allow me to be with my family so much during the sessions. At the start of each month, there's a 5-day session. And from 4 to 9, I'm basically with the Sangha, so I have not so much time to see my kids during these 5 days, although they're living just next door from the meditation hall. They're not living far away, but they know Dad is now meditating. They don't hardly see me for 5 days. During the winter, it's impossible for them to stay here at Antaiji because of snow. They can't go to school from here. So from December to March, they live in a house that's 20 kilometers from here. And I see them years again in February, and then they're going to come back at the end of March. But during the winter, I don't see them so much. So it's going to be a whole month until February, and then I'll only see them for the again after March. So as I have only 24 hours during the day and 365 days during the year, sometimes I have to make a decision: do I spend this time with the Sangha or with the family? Because that is with my family. Well, maybe some people in the Sangha might ask them all the way to Antaiji to practice with Muho. Muho is always changing diet. On the other hand, if I stay this winter for 3 months with the Sangha without seeing my wife, she asks herself, why did I marry Muho? We have 3 kids, so if he's sitting there in the mountain talking about the Buddha Dharma, I'm sitting here alone. So often that's a compromise. At least I feel some compromise, and when I invest myself doing more for the Sangha, when I spend time with would be spending more time with the family. Of course, there's also occasions where the family can join the Sangha. For example, when we have a party, or it would be realistic to have my 3-year-old son join us in the session, for example. Most of the Sangha is not possible for the people to join. Sometimes that's possible. So sometimes I use these chances, try to use the chance to also combine family and the Sangha, but often it's not possible. So, yeah, it's not easy for me. It's not easy for me, and well, maybe that's why the Buddha said, "Don't have a family, leave home." And that's what the most of the Asian continental Buddhists. I think a lot of Buddhists follow the Japanese tradition. They try to combine with the Buddhist practice. I don't think it's impossible, but it doesn't mean it's not worth trying, at least. Regret having a family and here. So I'm grateful to have this opportunity, although it's sometimes hard. Thank you.
Please wave your hand with a question. Anyone at all? Suzanne. Let me get your microphone on there. Hold on. Oops. There you are.
Could you talk a little bit more about how it was to work with your teacher and what that experience was like?
Yeah, thank you. Difficult question. Difficult because there's always the kind of well, in Japanese you have tatemae or omote, and the Buddha, kind of the surface, and what is behind that, the face. I'm sure there's also some way to express it in English, but kind of you can talk about it in a clean way, nice way, about all the beautiful aspects of being in a teacher-student relationship. There's quite a lot in that teacher-student relation that for both sides. So I learned a lot of from my teacher. I'm very grateful to my teacher that he put me as a student, and I wouldn't be the Muho that I am today without my teacher. And I learned those things that I talked about before from my teacher. On the other hand, my teacher was only a human being, and well, from the old times, there's been sometimes quite a lot of drinking going on, and my teacher loved to drink a lot, and sometimes I felt to approach him when he's not drunk. When he was drunk, it was easy to talk to him, but it was really hard to find discussion with the Buddha Dharma when he sold. He loved to smoke as well. He had wife, I'm married now. He would also get angry with his students quite a lot. So sometimes I ask myself, well, the teacher is supposed the role model, the kind of the substitute for the Buddha would be ideal if we could learn directly from the Buddha. The Buddha died 2,500 years, but we have the teacher, so we look up. But often when I look to my teacher, I couldn't see much of a role model there. But then my teacher wasn't the kind of guy to whom you could kind of, hey teacher, let's talk about our relationship. But at one point, teacher's teacher is still alive. He retired from Antalya for a while. He went to Italy, but then he came back to Japan. He's living a couple of But I visited my teacher's teacher during the winter break and had a talk with him about all these problems that I could discuss with my direct teacher. And what he told me is a stupid student will only find a stupid teacher. Normally you would think it's the other way around. If you have a stupid teacher, he will attract only stupid students. Dogen Zenji uses the example of the carpenter. If you give a carpenter a high quality piece of wood, but if it's a bad carpenter, he will mess that wood. If it's a good carpenter, even if the wood is not so good, he will make some piece of art out of this wood. So Dogen Zenji says it's all the responsibility of the teacher. What my teacher, if you're stupid, you will turn the teacher into something stupid as well. I think we can also see that with he had hundreds and thousands of students, but not all of them turned into do that. Each of these students turned into something different because they're like their mood. So my teacher's teacher told me, and not only are you creating anxiety, you're also creating the teacher. You are seeing the teacher that you are creating. That was something very, well, eye-opening. That was eye-opening for me. Well, my teacher, of course, is only a human being, and he has mistakes. He might get angry, he might get drunk, he might not be the best role model, but what I learned, it's up to me. I mean, even this imperfect teacher opens up from the mistakes of your teacher. Learning is to learn from the mistakes of your teacher or from the mistakes of your senior students. So it would be foolish for the student to expect the teacher to be perfect. If I study with my teacher for several years, then I become perfect just like so. That's not the case. At least that's not for the experience that I had. And after all these years, of course, I'm not myself. So I have to tell my students the same. Well, sorry, but this is the rule we have to deal with. I'm not perfect, but it's up to you. I'll try my best, but will try to even better. Yeah. Well, maybe so much to this question. If I did answer it, I can ask you.
Thank you. We have another question from home, someone who would like to be anonymous. Because of a serious health problem, they have to sit in many different postures, including reclining zazen. And we have busy people at home. And I tell them they can even sit 15 minutes, 20 minutes time, beyond long and short. Sit as if every... But of course, at Antaiji, you're sitting an hour. And I tell them long sitting is long, short sitting is short. Sit beyond long and short. When you can, sit long. But if you need to sit short, sit beyond time. That's what I tell folks. I'd like to ask you about people who, for example, this fellow needs to recline, or people who are only sitting for 10, 15 minutes at a time. What is your feeling?
That's completely okay with me. 5 minutes a day, I don't see any problem. So if people ask me, for example, they've been in, but now they're going back home, they want to continue with their practice, how should I continue? I think maybe they're thinking of 45 a.m. But if they try to sit from 4 to 6 each morning after they get back home, they might be able to do that for 3 days, but then they stop. So it's easier to start with 5 minutes, sit concentrated for 5 minutes every day, and if you feel like doing more, then you go and sit 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It's not really about the length of time, but that you're there, and you spend this time concentrated. And what is even more important than Zazen is what you do after Zazen. So even if you sit for 2 hours at a stretch without begin, and of course we do begin after this hour. But even if you work kind of Zazen Superman, you sit for 2 hours, 3 hours without begin, but then you're not concentrated, you're not in. Well, what's the meaning for these 2 or 3 hours of Zazen? Just as Bruno said, it's not about long thought. Although, from my experience, it can be sometimes actually easier to sit for a longer time than only sit 5 minutes to kind of somehow get into the meditation. Like when we sit for 25 minutes, an hour ago, I sensed some kind of change after 10, 15 minutes. It was easier. It was tense, or a situation facing the computer. So sometimes can be actually easier to sit for some time. About the posture, also of course some lotus, everybody can sit in Burmese. I have people in Antarctica sitting on a chair. I don't encourage that, but if people can't sit on the floor, they can sit on the chair. And people can't sit in full lotus, they can sit in half lotus. That's not possible. And sit in the Caesar position with a cushion on their bottom. The only thing that people need to be aware of, that even on a chair they will have pain. Even lying down, eventually you experience pain. I think Bogan says that somewhere. If you try to sit in the most comfortable posture, so aware of that. At one point, you always will get to a point. And I think it's vital at that point to just continue on, just as with the first question that how do I know that this is really the thing that I want to do, or how really the girl that I love? Sometimes you just have to carry on. Even a chair, it can be lying down. We use this phrase, well, the great death. You have to die on the cushion. And talk, but I think it's actually experienced quite well that we can have, for example, or even on the day-to-day Zazen, this might be killing me, and well, maybe it's really a physical problem, but often it's a psychological problem. And if it's that's aware of giving itself up. From my experience, it's good at that point. If I die, why not die now? Sometimes I tell that people before the session, like a session, now you're all enthusiastic about it, but in 2 days and 3 days, think about leaving, or you might even think about dying. You might think that if you die, there's still a lot of space for you. So in case that you die during the session, I'm happy to have a funeral for you after. But during those 25 years that I've come, and nobody has died in the day, that's not because people will never make that effort. Wrong word. You get up to the posture and you say, even if I die, I'm going to sit here. In that moment, already the moment you tell yourself, I'm going to die in the Zen. I'm going to die for the Zen. It gets very easy because you don't have to do anymore. You realize that it's not you that does the Zen, but the Zen is doing the Zen for you. The Zen is doing it with your body and mind. It doesn't take at that point of anymore so much. It's a painful switch. So I have to die at one point of time to one period of event. So what I just said might not be so, how do you say, practical in certain situations where you actually have a physical problem and you're hitting your physical limits. At that point of time, it's certainly better to look for different switch the posture even during the Zen, or I don't implement that. I usually tell people, well, at the end of the sitting, if you have to take another posture, look for different posture, and even if it's on the chair. But as I said, even on the chair, you will have pain, and one point of time you have to ask yourself, am I willing to die? And only if the answer is yes, then I think you can really practice Shikan. When we talk about changing that to body and mind dropping off.
Anyone? All right. Going once, going twice. Then I guess we'll finish with a question from Catherine, which is who's writing from home. She's watching. In response to your comment, leaving on the bus, I have this question. Was there a point when you realized that you had chosen the right path and no longer thought about leaving?
Well, to be honest, 1995, I got on the bus and left. Well, I discussed it with my teacher, with my senior students, the senior Dharma brothers. One of them told me, well, maybe anti-Aji practice isn't hard enough for you yet. And he recommended that I go to a Rinzai temple. He introduced me to a Rinzai temple in Kyoto. And Rinzai has a reputation of being even harder. And Rinzai, then there's a lot of beating with the Kyosaku stick. And you don't get much sleep. So in the temple where I went, we were sitting, and then next morning we get a sleep. So that's 4 hours. Decide how much you eat. So it's a little like boot camp. You know, the seniors force you to eat until the moment. That's also part of the practice. After session, people would boast about how many Kyosaku sticks they break, and different monasteries in Kyoto, they would kind of compete. The hardest or the most severe Yoshin, they would boast that they with an average of 14 sticks per break. Where I went was a little bit less, but every so many periods there would be a stick hit too hard on somebody's back, or also my back. Environment. Funny realization. Up to that point, I was always asking me the question that maybe also asking from Sweden is asking myself, what do I really want to do with my life? Or what I asked myself as a kid, why am I alive? Why don't I kill myself? So for me, life was always a problem. I'm alive, okay, but why? What am I doing with this life? And in that situation, I was always prepared to die tomorrow. Maybe I'm not going to experience tomorrow. I might not see tomorrow. But still, and it's miraculous that I'm still alive. I couldn't that's true for all of us, but usually that doesn't really seem realistic. But in that situation, and I spent 1 year in that monastery before I left. I could be dying. And actually, every couple of years, also in Anta and in Japan, you hear about people actually beaten to death in then monasteries. Usually, people try to keep that under the carpets. But well, you hear from friends and people that actually, again, a couple of months ago, somewhere somebody was either actually hospitalized or actually died. So I might be exaggerating now a little bit, but not too much. It feels dangerous. But at the same time, I felt, but now I'm still to what I want to do. And even if the situation is never perfect, it's up to me to make it better. So that's my. So I would say, well, it took me from 1993 when I realized it. But during these first 3 years, there was a lot of kind of going here, going there in my mind. I wasn't really quite sure. But then in 1996, after that 1 year, I stay here until I achieve war, and then my mind set on staying in the park as long as the police will tolerate you there. And now, back in Anta, somebody who take the job from me. Research I'm going to do the next step.
Anyone has a pressing question? All right. In that case, thank you very much for coming to join us today, and I hope it's not the last time when you're all snowed in up there and
yeah,
get a little lonely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time today, and in the morning?
And normally it would be, well, in the winter actually it's 5 that the then starts. From spring to autumn it's 4, but in the winter we're 1 hour late, and today was a 1-day session. So tomorrow we have a whole summer. We sleep until late. Breakfast tomorrow will be at 8. So I still have, if I would get to bed now, I would still have 9 hours to sleep. More than I need.
Okay. Well, I don't feel so bad since you're slacking off so much. So.
Yeah. So tomorrow that's still 5 or 6. Dozy that's cleaning up at 7. But, well, we can take out of sleep to the front.
Well, thank you very much, and I'll ask everyone to be in Gasho and to wish you a good night. Thank you, Muho.
Good. Thank you. Have a whatever time your vacation. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. Good night, everyone. Thank you, Muho. Very good. Thank you very much, Muho. And I sent you the link for the thread. People might be posting questions later. I know a couple of people emailed me. I'll write you later. But thank you so much for making time.
Okay.
See you later.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, guys. Michael, was it you lost work fairly well? Can you hear me, Michael? I said you lost the signal a couple of times, but did the system work fairly well?
Yeah, it was okay. I think at the end there was a bit of a lag of actually what was being done, but you know, it was good though. It worked.
You can hear
Well, it did break up a bit there, so I'll have to kind of rewatch the original video to
Okay.
cover it all, but it was a good alternative.
It was better than nothing, I guess. So I'll say good night to you guys. Thank you, Ron. See you later.
Good night.